All right, let's get into our final question of the video. Question number 10. Another one looking ahead to the season. Who will be the biggest name traded this season? This is one, it really just depends on the year. It depends on the situation. Last season, you could say it was either James Harden or Pascal Siakam getting traded. The year before, we got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And that, then there are some seasons where like it's just not the biggest name. It's like a washed version of Isaiah Thomas.
Year, right?
What was that, Jackson?
Wasn't D'Lo the biggest like a couple years ago when he got traded from Minnesota?
Yeah, when he got traded from Golden State to Minnesota. Yeah, he was the biggest name. Yeah, so it definitely varies by season. Let's see. Jackson, why don't you get us started again? Who will be the biggest name traded this season?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like based on my rankings, I had the Clippers being at 12. So I think in terms of big names, I think it's going to be James Harden again. Just because James Harden still is a big name in the NBA. He's not necessarily the best player, but he's still a big name. Like if he gets traded, people are going to talk about it like it's a crazy thing.
You know who's a bigger name in the NBA than James Harden? He's got a bigger name in the NBA.
Who?
Daryl Morey.
Daryl Morey.
Got him out of Philly.
This dude
obviously he has more pull.
Yeah, but all right. Yeah, but that's mine. I just had trouble with this. I didn't really. I don't think any big names are necessarily going to get traded.
I think it's going to be a dead year as well.
You could be right.
I think it's going to be one of those slower years, I think. And I think if anyone big name, it's going to be James Harden because James Harden still is a draw. He's still a guy that is a big name. I mean, like just based on his popularity. But yeah, that's probably who I'd have to go with. I don't know.
Yeah, as far as big name, yeah, I guess I can't really argue with that. I mean, James Harden, he would be the biggest name probably traded this season, just because it seems like a lot of guys are kind of set with where they are right now. Personally, I'd be shocked if James Harden got traded this year, considering he just re-signed. It's the Clippers' first year in their new big building. I don't think they would trade away a name like that in the first year of their big building, regardless of if the Clippers win games or not. And I honestly think that James Harden is going to play pretty well this season. I think the numbers will be better. I think, in training camp, he's talked about him having the ball more, him scoring more. He looks back in shape again, which I guess we could say we're at that point of the offseason. I remember showing you guys that. We're not at that point of the offseason.
Ben Simmons is also in shape right now, guys.
That is fair. Ben Simmons is also in shape. But yeah, man, if James Harden got traded, that'd be insane. Talk about a guy who is now one of the biggest journeyman stars, in recent memory. He's been
him and Russell Westbrook, man.
Him, Russell Westbrook, and KD, that OKC trio getting traded all over the country.
Absolutely. Joey, who is your big name getting traded?
I'm kind of with Goglin, where I don't think it's going to be a big name. It's going to be important players, like it always is, like role players or semi-stars that like they always show good promise. It's nothing going to be huge. I think it's going to be personally. I think it's going to be Jordan Poole. But it's going to be either of those guys on Washington. I think it's either going to be Kuzma or Poole. My vote is Poole. But yeah, one of those guys, like those guys are still good players and can contribute on a playoff contending team. As much as I love dogging on the both of them, especially Jordan Poole, he's still a solid player and can help a lot of teams out. So I don't know. I don't know where he would go.
Yeah, the contract makes it tough to trade.
That's all. Like I don't know where, but like I don't know.
Yeah,
I have a feeling.
I think Kuzma's more likely to be traded anyways, and I think he's probably a bigger name too, just like mainstream media looking at that. Because Kuzma is like very famous, like looking at it, like his Instagram followers, his like all that. He's like I think he's more famous than Poole. I think he's more mainstream. I think he's well known. So.
No one
Why do
asked
we
you
care
to-
about famous? We're talking about bigger name. Like we care about.
Well, I guess
Yeah,
that's
bigger
kind
name.
of what Jackson. That is kind of what Jackson.
Not famous. I don't care how many Instagram followers. You know who has more Instagram followers than anybody? Than any of them, probably Ben Simmons. And if he gets traded, he's still not a bigger name because that man is absolute hot garbage.
Not true, but okay.
All right, Nick.
Goggin,
who
I'm
do
a
you
fight.
Yeah, let's go. Put the gloves on. Let's go.
Nick, you go ahead.
All right, so my prediction is actually it's kind of a cheat because I don't know who this player is going to be traded for, but I think the player that I'm about to name is going to be traded for someone bigger than them, and I don't know who that is. So that's kind of how I'm cheating.
Okay.
I
So-
like that. That makes sense.
Okay, but so following like the trend that's been going on in the league, in the West, Minnesota and Dallas both kind of traded to get better than Denver. They had to find a Jokic stopper. They had to trade in Rudy Gobert and just get bigger. It's teams, trying to stop Denver, trying to stop Boston. The Knicks are doing that right now. Philly's kind of working on that. So I think Indy is bound to make another move. I think Indy's going to go for another big swing, and I don't know who they're going to target, but I think that Miles Turner is a guy who's been in a lot of talks. So that's who I'm going with is Miles Turner.
I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, on the final year of his contract too, he'd have a lot of value for the team he'd be traded to, for sure. Joey, do you have an idea of where
Miles
he could get
Turner
traded
for
to?
Al P.
Oh my God, that's great. No,
Dude,
I
now
actually
you just done pissed me off, bro. Shut up. Shut up. Like,
Look,
that's stupid.
the Miles Turner thing. I was gonna ask you guys. I guess in kind of relation to that, last season, especially during trade deadline time, like the bigger names, the Hardens, the Siakams, the Ananobis, they got traded before the deadline. When we got to the deadline, the big trade that we really focused on was the Bojan Bogdanovic, Alec Burks to New York, and then eventually the biggest moves from that were the PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford to Dallas trades. We didn't really prepare for this, but are there any guys out there, kind of like PJ Washington or Daniel Gafford, guys that are on those current lottery teams that you could see getting moved at the deadline that could have legit impacts on contending teams?
I'm thinking right off the bat, kind of like a Vucevic for the Bulls or something like that. I know they're, like I said, I don't know why they would still hang on to Zach LaVine, but I think they will for some reason because they can't find a trade partner or something or what they want. But I think Vucevic is one that still has a lot of value in the league. He's a scorer. He's a rebounder. He's a decent guy in the middle to defend a little bit. I don't know what his contract situation is, but just thinking teams that have good players that aren't going to be very good and don't want to be very good, he's definitely one I think of.
Yeah, he's a guy that Bulls fans I know love to, just harp on. They do that a lot with the big guys there in Chicago. It was the same with Boozer and Markkanen when he was drafted there. It was kind of the same thing. But contract-wise, he's got 2 years left. He's making $20 million per, which is solid for a guy giving you 18 and 10.
Yeah.
He had a brutal year shooting the tray ball last year, just 29%. But we know him to be a little bit better than that. The biggest name I have traded this season, it is Zach LaVine, actually, from the Bulls. Just because I think that, his contract, it is still, I'm very sure it's still, very expensive. I want to try to find the years he still has remaining on that. Still 3 seasons at 43, 45, $49 million. Tough deal to move, absolutely. But I feel like the Bulls will look to trade him as they have been the last few seasons. And they're going to, I think we talked about it a little bit in the team preview, how the Bulls are a team that could potentially be competitive the first half of the year because they're showcasing LaVine and Vucevic to potentially trade. Yeah. And Zach LaVine is a guy that, besides last season, which was pretty bad we could all say it was 19-5-4, and we were all just like, man, this is not at all what we, are used to seeing from Zach LaVine, because the previous 5 seasons of his career, his baseline mark was 24 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, which is awesome. So I think that if he can get back to that level, maybe it's 23-4-4, and a team is looking for that potential third scorer, then Zach LaVine could be a potential guy to be on the move. Because I think that it'd be worth the risk of the contract if he was putting up those numbers middle of the season. I understood why teams didn't want to take him last year, because he was pretty bad last year. If he's good, then it makes it easier for teams to take on that massive contract.